Vanessa asked a question on social about recommending stop losses. She says she doesn't have any set up, but she plans to be in the market for 20 more years at least, and she trusts the advice that Dan gives. So, Vanessa, I think the question is not so much when we get out. So, if you're going to set limit orders, it means that you're thinking about getting out and you're going to set that up to automatically happen at certain levels. The bigger question is you have to know when you're going to get back in. If you get out, you have to be right twice. You have to be right about when you get out and when you get back in. So one study I read, and this was going back to the end of 2015, it said that investors who panic sell during previous downturns, so that was before then, including the financial crash of '07, '08, more than 30% of investors who got out didn't get back in, even years later. So, what are the ramifications of that? Well, if you go back to 1930, if you missed in the S&P and you missed the 10 best performing days out of every 10 years, so 10 days out of 10 years, your total return would have been 28%. That's not in a year. That's total return. However, someone that stayed invested through the ups and the downs may have had almost an 18,000% return. 28% versus 18,000%. That's a huge difference. The other issue is what are you going to do if you don't get back in right away or while you're waiting to get back in? If you go to cash and you were spending your dividends and income to fund your lifestyle, where is that money going to come from? Well, you're either going to have to cut your spending if you can. I would say most people who are living off of the income from their portfolios aren't really in a position to do that. I mean, what are you going to do? Stop, cut your food consumption, not put as much gas in your tank. What are your other options? Well, you're going to have to spend some of your principal. And then that means that you're going to have less money to invest later when you decide to reinvest, which is going to create less income. And it's a snowball effect, just perpetuating that. So if you do decide to cut your spending, what are you going to cut out? Food, gas, utilities, taxes? Are you going to not pay your utility bill during the winter? You going to ask the government to let you wait to pay your taxes when the market comes back up? I don't think that's going to go over too well. Most likely it's going to be your discretionary spending. It's going to be travel. It's going to be entertainment. It's going to be those things that you don't really have to spend money on. What about your giving? Is your giving going to get cut? A lot of times that seems like the most logical place to do it. Oh, I'm not really going to see any consequences. I'm not going to be hungry if I stop giving. I'm not going to not be able to use my car if I stop giving. And I have good intentions. The Lord knows my heart. I'll pick that up later. Well, good stewardship is more about what you're doing with your money than how much money you get to keep. So, is it better stewardship to stop giving and move to cash and preserve what you have? Or do you want to continue being obedient in what the Lord has asked you to do? If you live in the world's economy, you're going to be subject to the way that it works. If you live according, Jesus said, if you live according to the sword, you'll die according to the sword. That's what he told Peter, when he went to cut off the soldier's ear. And so if you live in the world economy, you're going to be subject to the way that it works. And there are real spiritual laws in play here. One of those laws is reciprocity. That's a big word for reaping and sowing. And, one of the things that you can count on is that if something doesn't, or a seed doesn't get sown, it'll grow into nothing. What happened to the manager in Matthew 25, the story of the talents, right? The third manager that was given an account had buried his talent. There were three managers, and they were all charged with taking care of some financial resources for the master while he was away. Well, he buried it. So guess what? It didn't perform like a seed that was buried. Money that's buried is not going to grow into anything. A seed, on the other hand, that's buried will. So the money did nothing except stay the same. It didn't produce any fruit. It didn't produce any fruit that the manager could have used while he was waiting for the master to come back. It certainly didn't produce any fruit for the kingdom. And more importantly, it didn't produce any fruit for the master. It did nothing. Well, almost nothing. It did reveal the fear that was in the servant's heart, because that was the excuse that he gave when he gave an account and said that that's why he buried it, because the master was a hard master and he reaped where he hadn't sown, not subject to the laws of the world. And he was afraid, so he hid it. It also revealed the apathy in the servant's heart about the things that the master cared for. It wasn't his. He kind of got that point that it wasn't his. So he's like, I'll just bury it and ignore it until the master comes back. Then he can have it back and do what he wants to do with it. So the other spiritual principle here is the law instituted at creation. When God the Father made creation, he created seeds, he created plants, he created every living thing, right? Well, one of the principles that he set in creation was that things would reproduce after its own kind. So if you sow an apple seed, you're going to get an apple tree. You're not going to get a peach tree. When you sow financial seeds, on the other hand, I'm going to suggest that you're going to get financial fruit. When you invest kindness in someone else, you're going to get back kindness. On the other hand, if you invest anger and rudeness and hate and apathy towards somebody, you're going to get that back too, shaken down, pressed together, and overflowing. So when you sow financial seeds, you're going to get financial fruit back.
Hey, remember to click the subscribe button right here on the screen. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when new content is added. And more importantly than anything, you don't want to miss all 3 live hours of Financial Issues every day from 9 to noon. And you can watch it on FISM.TV. That's FISM.TV.